All right, let's jump right into another deep dive, shall we? This week, we've got a pretty diverse spread of stories, kind of like one of those fancy cheese boards, with a little something for everyone.
An apt analogy. It's always fascinating how these seemingly unrelated news items, from culinary quirks to, well, sneakers, can reveal these larger trends and anxieties simmering beneath the surface.
You hit the nail on the head. Like, who knew there was so much to unpack about, well, brie cheese? There's a whole article devoted to the etiquette of eating it.
Yes, I must say, even I raise an eyebrow at some of the pronouncements. The whole notion of letting brie reach room temperature before diving in, apparently consuming it straight from the fridge is considered, well, practically sacrilege.
It does seem a little fussy, but
Yes.
it does make you think. I mean, the whole texture, the flavor, it all changes so drastically at different temperatures. It's kind of like, I don't know, how wine tastes so different depending on how chilled it is.
It's about appreciating those subtleties, you see, unlocking the full spectrum of the brie experience.
And speaking of experiencing it correctly, there's a whole section on the right way to slice baked brie.
Ah, yes, the art of avoiding a molten cheese eruption. Cutting in from the side is a definite no-no.
It's like unleashing a lava flow. Much better to gently remove the cap from the top, I suppose.
There's something to be said for respecting those little rituals. Even with something as simple as enjoying cheese, it adds to the whole
Right.
experience.
Plus, nobody wants to be that person who, commits a major cheese faux pas at a gathering. But get this, one of the biggest no-nos, according to this article, is something called pointing the brie.
Pointing the brie. Now, that's a phrase I haven't encountered before.
So apparently it's when you just cut off the tip of the wedge for yourself, like taking the pointy end. The article makes it sound like a pretty selfish move.
Interesting. Not only are you potentially missing out on the full range of flavors the brie has to offer, but you're also perhaps depriving others of the best part.
It's almost like a miniature lesson in sharing an etiquette right there in your cheese plate.
Precisely. It speaks volumes about those underlying societal values we often take for granted.
So who knew brie could be so loaded?
Ah,
Anyway, ready to move on from cheese to something a little more streetwear.
lead the way. I'm always curious to see how these trends in fashion, particularly in something like sneaker culture, reflect ththose larger cultural currents.
Well, let's talk Wu-Tang Clan and Nike then. Specifically, the Nike Dunk High Wu-Tang Clan edition. Those sneakers are, well, legendary.
Ah, yes, those were a pretty big deal, if memory serves. A true grail for sneakerheads. Wasn't the original release incredibly limited?
Limited doesn't even begin to describe it.
Oh,
Think 36 pairs. And they were only given to, well, members of the Wu-Tang Clan themselves, their inner circle, and then a handful of Nike employees.
ah, that explains the, shall we say, enthusiastic aftermarket prices they command. The article mentioned a pair listed on StockX for a cool $100,000.
Yeah, 100,000. And get this, RZA himself actually saw that very listing when he was visiting a StockX location in Tokyo with his son.
It's remarkable how certain objects accrue this sort of cultural and monetary value, isn't it? It speaks to the power of scarcity, of nostalgia, and of course, the enduring appeal of an iconic group like the Wu-Tang Clan.
Totally. It's more than just hype. Those sneakers represent a connection to a whole legacy, to a movement, to a particular era in music and style.
Precisely. They transcend being mere footwear and become, well, artifacts of a cultural moment.
And for fans who don't have a spare 100 grand lying around, there's good news. Nike's releasing a slightly updated version of that Wu-Tang Dunk, so now more people can get in on the action.
A savvy move from a business standpoint, no doubt. It taps into that nostalgia while acknowledging the demand from a wider audience.
So there you have it. From exclusive cheese etiquette to, well, the democratization of iconic sneakers. And we've still got a whole lot more to cover in this deep dive.
Indeed. Let's see what other intriguing nuggets of information await us.
So it seems we're not done with the future just yet, because next up we're diving into the world of, well, prediction markets.
Ah, yes, where the wisdom or at least the opinions of the crowd meet the allure of, well, speculation. It's certainly a trend that's gaining traction.
It is. In fact, Robinhood, the trading platform, they just launched their very first prediction market. And for their debut event, they went with, well, you can probably guess.
Given the timing, I'd say the presidential election.
You got it. And it's interesting because there was so much buzz around prediction markets during this last election cycle. Platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket saw a ton of new users. Some folks were even saying they were giving more accurate predictions than traditional polls.
Interesting. Now, for those of us who maybe aren't as familiar, can you give us a quick rundown of how these prediction markets actually work?
Sure. Basically, there are these crowdsourced forecasting platforms. People can actually put money down on the outcome of future events.
So it could be anything from, let's say, election results to, well, I don't know, the success of a new gadget or even like economic indicators.
Exactly.
Hmm.
The idea is that by kind of pooling all these predictions together, you can get a more accurate read on what might actually happen.
It makes sense, especially these days when trust in, well, traditional news sources is, let's say, not at its highest. People are looking for alternative ways to make sense of things, and prediction markets offer this, well, data-driven, if somewhat speculative lens.
For sure. And it seems people are really buying into it, so to speak. Robinhood's prediction market racked up something like 500 million bets during the election.
Wow, 500 million. It's certainly captured the public's imagination. But of course, it does raise questions, doesn't it? I mean, about how reliable these markets really are. There's always the potential for manipulation or bias.
Absolutely. Transparency is key, and we always have to be thinking critically. Prediction markets can be a cool tool, but they're not magic. We can't just blindly trust them.
It's all part of this larger shift in the media landscape, I think. The way we consume and process information is constantly being reshaped by technology.
Well said. Okay, let's shift gears now. We've talked about predicting the future, so how about we take a look at, well, China's present economic situation?
It's certainly been a hot topic lately. They just announced a massive bailout package aimed at, well, stabilizing their local governments and giving their economy a boost.
Yeah, we're talking $1 trillion gamble here. China's facing some real headwinds, like a struggling real estate market, high youth unemployment, a manufacturing slowdown. It's a whole mess.
And while that bailout is, well, a staggering sum of money, some analysts are wondering if it's really enough to address these, well, deep-seated issues.
Right, it might be more of a band-aid than a cure.
Like trying to plug a leak in a boat while ignoring the, well, the storm brewing around you. Publications like The Economist and Nikkei Asia have pointed out some concerns about, well, the lack of transparency in China's economic data. And then there's the issue of local authorities resorting to, let's just say, strong arm tactics,
Yeah, like trying to suppress negative economic news to make things look better than they are.
which, of course, can erode trust and make investors wary.
Exactly. If people don't believe the data, they're less likely to invest, which, of course, just makes the problem worse.
It's a vicious cycle. And then there are those reports of local governments using, well, let's call them creative revenue generating methods,
Yeah.
like imposing really heavy fines on businesses for minor infractions.
Oh, right. I read about that.
It creates this atmosphere of uncertainty and fear, which is hardly conducive to, well, a thriving economy.
So the trillion-dollar question is, will this bailout actually fix things or just kick the can down the road?
It's definitely a situation that warrants close attention, especially considering the impact China's economy has on, well, the rest of the world.
Okay, and for our final course on today's news buffet, let's head back to the U.S. and take a look at the political scene.
The political landscape is certainly shifting. Donald Trump is back in the White House, and everyone's speculating about what his second term will look like.
There's a lot to unpack, that's for sure. The Politico article gives us some insight into the power dynamics at play within Trump's inner circle. One figure who seems to be emerging as a key player is Susie Wiles, the new chief of staff.
Ah, yes. The Ice Maiden, as she's been dubbed. Rumored to be the only one who can actually tell Trump when he's, shall we say, off the mark.
She's known for being a shrewd political operator, someone who can navigate the unique challenges of working in Trump's orbit.
Her influence will be crucial in shaping the administration's agenda, I suspect. And then, of course, there's the wild card factor of Elon Musk.
Right. The tech mogul seems to have Trump's ear, which has led to a lot of speculation about his potential influence on policy, especially in areas like, well, tech and innovation.
It adds an unpredictable element to the equation, that's for sure. Musk's views on things like artificial intelligence and space exploration could very well find their way into the administration's priorities.
It's definitely a dynamic worth watching. And of course, we can't forget about the Republican Party itself. They now have, well, complete control with both houses of Congress and the White House.
A trifecta. The question now is, will they be able to maintain unity and actually deliver on their campaign promises?
And how will the Democrats respond to this new political reality? It'll be interesting to see how they adapt their strategies.
It's a new era of divided government, and the stakes are high.
Well, it feels like we've just about covered it all. From cheese etiquette to sneaker culture, from prediction markets to Chinese bailouts, and now the political intrigue of Trump's second term. It's been quite a journey.
Indeed. It's a testament to how seemingly unrelated stories can often illuminate those larger trends and anxieties that shape our world.
So what are the main takeaways here? What's the big picture?
I think one thing that really stands out is this interplay between technology, information, and power. You see it with these prediction markets kind of challenging traditional news outlets, and with figures like Elon Musk potentially influencing government policy. It's a whole new landscape.
It is, and it really underscores the importance of, well, of critical thinking.
Mm.
We have to be more discerning than ever about the information we're consuming.
Mm.
Whether we're talking about economic data or, well, political maneuvering, we can't just take things at face value.
Absolutely. We need to be constantly questioning, seeking out different perspectives.
And then there's the, well, the power of culture, right? We saw it with those Wu-Tang sneakers. But even something as simple as, well, brie cheese and the rituals around how we eat it, it all speaks to these deeper values and desires.
It's a reminder that even seemingly insignificant things can hold profound meaning.
It's true. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I gotta say, I'm feeling, well, a mix of excitement and maybe a little bit of trepidation about the future.
I understand that. It's a time of great change, of uncertainty, but also of incredible potential.
Exactly. So, as we always say, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning.
And never stop challenging your own assumptions. Look for those different viewpoints. It's through that kind of friction, that clash of ideas, that we really learn and grow.
Well said. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.